My name is Kristen. In this video, I'll be walking through 3 core concepts from week 2, event emitters and listeners in Node.js, the difference between Node's HTTP module and Express, and how to handle different HTTP methods and routes in WebServer. Let's start with event emitters. In Node.js, the event emitter class is a built-in way for different parts of an application to communicate with each other. You can think of it like signing up for a company's newsletter. Once you subscribe, you'll get notified every time they send something out. In code, you create an event emitter, and then different listeners can register themselves to respond when a specific event is emitted. When the event happens, Node calls all the listeners in the order they were registered. One important detail is that event emission in Node is synchronous by default. That means when you emit an event, Node will run all the listeners immediately before moving on. You can make things asynchronous if you want, but the default behavior is synchronous. Alright, let's talk about the difference between Node's built-in HTTP module and Express. The HTTP module is very low level. You have to manually parse request bodies, set headers, and write your own routing logic. It works, but it's a lot of boilerplate. Express, on the other hand, gives you a much smoother developer experience. It automatically handles things like parsing JSON bodies, setting common headers, and routing requests to the right handler. Express also introduced the idea of middleware. Middleware functions run whenever a request comes in. They can modify the requests, set headers, add data, or decide whether to pass the request along to the next middleware or to a route handler. A route handler is a function that responds to a specific HTTP method and path. For example, a GET request to /users. Route handlers receive rec, res, and sometimes next. Rec contains all the information about the incoming request. Res is how we send the response, and next is used if we need to pass an error or continue to another handler. But route handler only passes usually next to errors, or errors to error handlers using next. Middleware can do things like add data to rec, set cookies, or return a response directly. A common example is a not found handler, which runs when no route matches the request. Now let's talk about handling different HTTP methods. Each method has a specific purpose. Get is for reading data, post is for creating new records, put replaces an entire record, patch updates part of a record, and delete removes a record. In Express, handling these is straightforward. For example, you might have app.get/users and app.post/users. To parse JSON request bodies, you use the built-in middleware app.use express.json. This automatically reads any request with a content type of application JSON and stores the parsed data in rec.body. From there, your route handlers can log information, read query parameters, or send formatted responses. For example, you might get a log, you might log a GET request to the home route or test a POST request using Postman. So, for example, in the app.js file, every time you get any request to any path, we will send in the console a rec.method, rec.path, and rec.query. So here's an example. So here I am sending a GET request to home, and you can see here it tells me in the log GET. So I sent a GET to the home, so that's /, but there was no query, so that's why it's empty. Another example would be post. So if I post to test post, I want to send a response saying created successfully. So if we go to Postman and then change this to post, and then we post to test post, copy, then it sends a created successfully response here, and it still logs test post with an empty parameter. So that is the error. Well, not the error handling, but well, there was also error handling in here. So it logged an error. You can't do get for test post because that's what we told it to do in not found. So we told it to say you can't do whatever the method for the URL, which is exactly what it's doing here. You can't do get for a /test post. So that is also the error handling that I told it to do as well. Finally, let's talk about errors. In Express, errors are handled by error handling middleware. If something goes wrong in a route or middleware, you can call next error, and Express will pass it to your error handler. That handler can then send back a useful message. Status codes help communicate what happened. 100s are informational, 200s mean successful, 300s are redirections, 400s are client errors, like 401 unauthorized and 404 not found, and 500s are server errors. Understanding these helps you build clear, predictable APIs. And that's a quick overview of Event Emitters Express versus the HTTP module and how to handle routes, methods, and errors in a web server. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.